Legendary professional wrestler Hulk Hogan has died.
The world is still grappling with the shocking loss of wrestling legend Hulk Hogan, but now a disturbing twist has emerged, one that no one saw coming. New footage, graphic and deeply unsettling, has surfaced online, sparking an avalanche of speculation. Was Hogan's death truly natural, or is something far more sinister at play? The viral video, leaked just days after his passing, is already igniting outrage, confusion, and grief across the globe. For fans who grew up idolizing the red and yellow icon, this isn't just about a loss. It's about betrayal, unanswered questions, and the haunting possibility that their hero may not have died peacefully. The internet is ablaze, but the truth remains tangled in shadows. Official statements and the limits of certainty. When news of Hulk Hogan's sudden death spread across headlines, authorities acted promptly, launching a formal investigation, as is standard in cases involving unexpected fatalities. The Clearwater Police Department and the local medical examiner's office issued statements emphasizing that there were no signs of foul play. According to their early findings, Hogan had died of cardiac arrest, with no immediate evidence to suggest anything suspicious or criminal. Yet despite the clarity and professionalism of these announcements, something about them felt hollow to the millions who had grown up watching Hogan as an icon. The official language, dry, clinical, procedural, felt worlds away from the deeply emotional reality of what fans had just witnessed in leaked footage. A fragile, broken man clinging to life as paramedics worked desperately to save him. For many, this dissonance created a lingering discomfort. How could someone who once seemed invincible fade so suddenly, so quietly, and be summed up in a couple of paragraphs on government letterhead? The sharp contrast between the legend that was Hulk Hogan and the sterile documentation of his death made the loss feel even more jarring. It wasn't just the end of a life, it was the unraveling of a myth. The death investigation, standard procedure, persistent questions. The police underscored that a death investigation is routine in cases of medical emergencies resulting in death, aiming to ensure transparency and thoroughness. But for a man like Hulk Hogan, whose life was marked by intense highs and public battles, these reassurances offered little solace. Whispers and rumors began swirling almost immediately. Were there enemies with grudges? Could someone have wanted him harm? Some fans, recalling past controversies and tensions, speculated about a hidden motive or darker forces at play. Yet after meticulous investigation, officials found no evidence linking any third party to his death. There was no proof to support theories of foul play. Instead, what emerged was a story of a body worn down by decades of relentless physical punishment. Hogan's history was filled with grueling surgeries, more than 25 in his final 10 years alone, chronic pain, and severe deterioration. The years spent under the brutal lights of professional wrestling had taken a devastating toll, leaving him vulnerable and fragile. Medical concerns, including heart problems, were compounded by lingering questions about his past use of steroids and other substances, known to contribute to cardiovascular complications. This complex medical reality formed the backdrop against which his final moments unfolded. A body worn thin, chronic health battles. To truly grasp the circumstances leading to Hulk Hogan's death on July 24, 2025, it's essential to look beyond that tragic morning and understand the relentless toll wrestling took on his body over decades. Hogan was more than just a larger-than-life figure in the ring. He was a man whose physical health was steadily eroding under the weight of years of grueling matches, punishing moves, and countless surgeries. In the months leading up to that summer day, Hogan's body was a battlefield littered with scars, medical procedures, and silent struggles, many of which were shielded from public view. By June 2025, multiple insiders and medical sources confirmed that Hogan had undergone serious heart surgery, a revelation that stunned fans accustomed to hearing mainly about his orthopedic injuries. His team and loved ones attempted to manage the narrative. His public relations representatives downplayed the severity, assuring the world that the surgery wasn't a near-death situation. His wife, Sky Daly, took to social media to firmly deny rumors that Hogan had suffered neurological damage, insisting that his heart is strong and that there was never any lack of oxygen or brain injury. Yet behind the polished statements and public optimism, the reality was far more fragile and somber. Hogan's heart condition marked a grim turning point, revealing that after years of enduring the physical demands of wrestling, his body was finally giving way. Steroid use in a steady decline, fans, speculations, and medical research. No discussion of Hogan's health is complete without addressing the controversial and often whispered topic of his alleged long-term anabolic steroid use. The wrestling world of the 1980s and 1990s was notorious for its intense pressures to maintain peak physical condition, pressures that led many performers down the path of performance-enhancing drugs to meet impossible expectations. While Hogan never publicly confirmed prolonged steroid use, rumors and insider accounts persist, creating a shadow over his legacy. Medical research leaves little doubt about the dangers of sustained steroid use. Studies have consistently linked anabolic steroids to a host of cardiovascular issues, including hypertension, heart enlargement, arrhythmias, and an increased risk of heart attacks and sudden cardiac death. For a man whose career demanded superhuman physical feats and whose body was already breaking down from repeated injuries, the cumulative effect of steroid use may have been a hidden accelerant, compounding the damage caused by years of wrestling trauma and perhaps even underlying genetic vulnerabilities. To fans and commentators, this connection forms a painful narrative. A man who gave so much of himself to his craft, only to have the very tools he used to build his persona contribute to his decline. It paints a picture of the wrestling industry's darker side, where the pursuit of glory often came at the cost of health, and the consequences sometimes only became apparent decades later. Inside the operating room, surgery after surgery. Hogan's medical journey reads like a chronicle of survival and desperate resilience. In candid moments, he once revealed, "I've had 25 surgeries in the last 10 years. This staggering number speaks to a body that was failing piece by piece, with each procedure aiming to restore function, alleviate pain, or stave off further deterioration. But more often, these surgeries felt like patchwork repairs on a system rapidly breaking down. Spine, the pain of his signature. One of the most tragic ironies in Hogan's story is the devastating effect of his iconic finishing move, the leg drop. A move so synonymous with Hogan's persona had, over decades, compressed and crushed his spinal vertebrae, contributing to chronic pain and permanent damage. In 2010, Hogan underwent a grueling 12-hour spinal fusion surgery, a medical marathon to rebuild his spine after years of trauma. The surgery involved fusing multiple vertebrae, reconstructing damaged discs, and stabilizing the spinal column. It was both a technical marvel and a desperate attempt to regain some semblance of normalcy. The aftermath was equally challenging. The fusion brought relief but also complications. Hogan endured hardware failures that necessitated additional surgeries, ongoing nerve pain, and relentless inflammation. The physical toll manifested visibly. Once towering at 6 feet 7 inches, he was now closer to 6 feet 4 inches, a subtle but poignant marker of how wrestling had worn him down physically. Joints and ligaments, the hidden battle in knees, hips, and shoulders. Beyond the struggles with his back and spine, Hogan's joints endured a relentless onslaught over the years. The pounding from countless matches, slams, falls, and high-impact moves took a severe toll on his knees and hips, leading to replacements on both sides. While these surgeries offered some relief, they were never a cure. The damage was progressive, and each day brought new reminders that his body was no longer the invincible machine it once was. His shoulders, too, suffered from repeated dislocations and tears, necessitating multiple reconstructive surgeries. What might seem like small inconveniences to others, walking down a flight of stairs, bending over, even turning his head, became Herculean tasks for Hogan, underscoring how far his physical condition had declined. The very joints that once helped him dominate in the ring now betrayed him with pain and stiffness. Mobility was compromised, and the legacy of decades spent in the wrestling world pressed down on him with the weight of limited movement and chronic discomfort. More than bones, facial reconstructions and internal repairs. Hogan's medical battles extended far beyond just bones and joints. The repeated blows to his head, a near-constant hazard of wrestling, left their mark not only on his mind, but on his face. Reconstructive facial surgeries were necessary, a testament to the physical risks he took for the entertainment of millions. But the toll was deeper still. Those close to him revealed that Hogan also underwent surgeries to repair internal organ damage caused by the strain and impact of his long career. Hernias and ruptures, often invisible to fans, are common injuries for wrestlers subjected to such continuous physical trauma. Each operation wasn't just a medical event, it was a somber acknowledgement of the enormous price Hogan had paid. Friends and family described these surgeries as desperate attempts to buy more time, a phrase heavy with both hope and the harsh reality of a body steadily unraveling after years of abuse. The final hour, when time ran out. The morning Hogan's heart finally gave out was the closing chapter of a life marked by physical battles and resilience. When EMTs arrived in Clearwater that day, they stepped into a scene that reflected years of trauma, a body that had been pushed beyond its limits. Immediate medical interventions were swift. CPR, oxygen, and emergency medications were all administered in a race against time. But despite their efforts, Hogan's body had reached a breaking point. His heart, weakened by years of strain and compounded health challenges, simply couldn't hold on. From the moment the emergency call was placed at 9:51 a.m. to the official pronouncement just 10 minutes later, the timeline underscored how quickly the end came once the system failed. It was a stark reminder that even a man who had once seemed larger than life was ultimately mortal. The speed of his final collapse reflected the fragility of a body that had endured decades of punishment, surgeries, and pain. In those brief moments, the curtain fell on a chapter of wrestling history in a personal journey marked by triumph, struggle, and an unyielding spirit. Murder allegations and fan theories. Seeking answers or fueling rumors. The speculation surrounding Hogan's collapse has become a mix of genuine concern, fan theories, and rumor-fueled narratives. Some cling to vague past stories, claims that Hogan once found someone trying to kill him. But these are often unverified tales passed around wrestling circles, fueled more by legend and rivalry than by fact. Mainstream medical reports and the official investigation paint a different picture. Hogan's decline was the natural result of years of physical strain, not foul play. Yet disbelief persists among fans. How could a man who symbolized power and endurance fall so rapidly? This disbelief often reflects more about the fans themselves, their fears, their nostalgia, than the truth. Meanwhile, Hogan himself described daily life in terms that made his suffering more relatable. "It's hard to explain," he said, painting a picture of routine moments, like brushing his teeth, that had become physical trials. "I lean in like that, then I have to pull back," he said, describing how even standing at the sink required careful balance and effort. The toll of decades in the ring left him broken in ways few could see. The rumors may stir curiosity, but the reality is far simpler and sadder. The physical toll of wrestling. Hogan's struggle with his own body. Hogan's legendary career was defined by power, charisma, and a seemingly unstoppable presence in the wrestling ring. But beneath that larger-than-life persona was a man battling relentless physical pain and crippling limitations that few fans ever saw or understood. "You know, I can't push like a glass door," Hogan once admitted, describing the way even simple physical actions became monumental challenges. The gym was no longer a place of strength for him, but a constant reminder of his body's fragility. "Everything in the gym is short strokes," he said. He couldn't straighten his arms fully, nor his knees or hips, and his back and neck constantly screamed in protest. It was as if his body refused to cooperate, a stark contrast to the powerhouse image he once embodied. This harsh reality came from decades of abuse. Hogan reflected candidly, "I probably wrestled too long, and I didn't get the memo that stuff was fake." The physicality of professional wrestling, the hits, the slams, the falls, had accumulated like a mountain of unseen injuries. Wrestling was entertainment, yes, but the damage was very real. Each match took a toll that compounded over years, eventually manifesting as severe mobility issues and chronic pain. The domino effect, from injury to life-altering limitations. The cascade of health problems began with a series of original injuries, each one adding weight to a growing burden Hogan carried daily. Following one of his last back surgeries, the loss of feeling in his lower body was a devastating blow, not just physically but psychologically. Imagine losing the sense of control over your own legs, the very foundation of movement. For Hogan, it was more than just a limitation. It was a fundamental change in how he related to his own body. His ordeal took a darker turn when medical malpractice entered the picture. In 2013, Hogan filed a lawsuit against the Laser Spine Institute, alleging that the clinic had performed unnecessary and ineffective procedures that only worsened his condition. The lawsuit painted a desperate picture. Hogan had undergone 6 surgeries in less than 2 years at the institute, each offering only fleeting relief before the debilitating pain returned with a vengeance. Rather than healing, the treatments seemed to burn nerves, temporarily masking pain while the underlying issues festered. This cycle of temporary relief, followed by return to baseline pain, trapped Hogan in a vicious loop. It was not just a physical prison, but a mental one, eroding his hope with every failed attempt at recovery. The dark path of pain management and addiction. With the relentless pain came a dangerous reliance on prescription drugs. Hogan's addiction to painkillers was not a sign of weakness, but a tragic consequence of medical desperation. He described it as a vicious cycle that nearly cost him his life years before his actual cardiac arrest. At one point, pharmacists warned him about the lethal dosages he was being prescribed, warning signs that were ignored or unavoidable in his quest to manage unrelenting pain. The turning point came with fentanyl, a powerful opioid so strong that Hogan's use of it was alarming even to medical professionals. "They almost killed me with that stuff," he recalled. "That's when I said I'm done." In fact, Hogan had no idea at first that fentanyl was being administered alongside morphine and other medications, none of which effectively treated his back pain. The fentanyl episode highlighted just how close Hogan had come to death years before his actual passing. Medical experts were shocked he was still alive under such extreme dosages. The constant surgeries had left his spine compromised, with too much bone removed, weakening the structural integrity and making his condition a medical disaster waiting to happen. The physical and emotional cost of a grueling career. Hogan's pain and physical decline weren't just from in-ring injuries. They were also the result of an exhausting lifestyle. At his peak, he wrestled more than 400 matches a year, traveling relentlessly, performing nearly daily. "I was flying 300 days a year," he said, referring to the relentless schedule that allowed little time for rest or healing. This grueling pace created a perfect storm of physical stress that no human body was designed to withstand. The wear and tear on his joints, muscles, and nerves accumulated decade after decade. Eventually, Hogan's health began to reflect the immense strain. Mobility issues worsened, he required a cane to walk, and the numbness in his legs became permanent. In May 2025, just months before his death, Hogan underwent another surgery, a so-called little fusion procedure. But even minor surgeries carried enormous risks. Complications from this operation damaged his trachea, affecting his ability to speak and serve as a reminder of how fragile his health had become. A medical history marked by surgical battles. Hogan's surgical history reads like a chronicle of trauma. Over the past decade, he underwent 25 surgeries, including 10 focused on his back alone. Both knees and hips were replaced, shoulders reconstructed, facial bones repaired from wrestling-related injuries, and abdominal surgeries to address internal damage. Each surgery represented more than a medical intervention. It was a battle and an ongoing war against a body systematically breaking down under the weight of decades of abuse. Despite all the pain and setbacks, Hogan maintained a surprising resilience and even some philosophical acceptance. "Bodies are an amazing thing," he reflected. "With all the metal, all the surgeries, I'm still living a good life. I may not run as fast or walk as well, but I'm here. I train every day. I eat great." His words convey a mix of grit and gratitude, a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure even the harshest physical realities. Stay informed, stay updated, hit that subscribe button,